All right.
Jake, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing so well. How are you, my friend?
I can't complain. It's a Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. for me. What is it, 6 for you?
No, I'm actually on Eastern time too.
Are you
8:04.
really?
That's it. Oh
Detroit,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, we're geographically, you're pretty east of me, but we happen to share the same time zone, which is
Okay.
interesting. Oh yeah.
I'm not really good with geography either, so I mean,
Okay,
it's
that's
not
why
my.
that's why we're in media and entertainment. I understand.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But Jake from the band Autumn Kings, happy to have you on the Popko Project Podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Awesome. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, your PR team sent me your stuff, and she had a description for you guys that I read briefly, and then I just immediately went to the song and the music, and I was like, wow, this is spot on to what she said, but
Yeah.
almost kind of a feel that I shouldn't say I never heard before, but it was a little different.
Mm.
Um, I'll share with you, I don't know if you've seen this, but she said if Linkin Park and Fall Out Boy had a baby, it would result in Autumn Kings.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
And I mean, that's accurate. I mean, that's accurate. And I'm sharing that because if anyone was watching or listening, I mean, that's for fans of those bands. Uh, yeah, that's accurate.
Totally
So,
right. Two of our favorite bands of all time, and they've influenced us in profound ways, musically, lyrically, on stage and off stage.
yeah,
Oh yeah, big time. Linkin Park is a huge influence of ours because they transcended the boundaries of just rock and they incorporated a lot of different influences, right? So they had rock, rap, EDM. They were playing with digital elements long before that was a mainstream thing. Mike Shinoda and the band who does the rapping and is one of the primary songwriters. A lot of people don't know this, but he was really ahead of his time in terms of being able to navigate Pro Tools and being a great engineer. And so their influence is still felt to this day. And they have paved the way for so many bands, Autumn Kings, my band being one of them, just because of their raw authenticity and originality. The way they were able to truly stand out among all of their contemporaries by daring to explore uncharted waters and marry certain sounds together is something that we're really grateful for their example.
yeah. I mean, I remember when they came out. It was late '90s, maybe early 2000s. Yeah, definitely a different sound and uh, a unique sound. And
Yeah,
sadly, we lost Chester a few years ago.
right. Right.
Was that hard for you guys?
Yeah, I remember the day it happened. Actually, it was July 2017, right when Joe, the co-lead vocalist, and I got out of our writing session in my parents' basement. And I think someone was just scrolling on Facebook, saw the news, and we sat there in more than just a moment of silence, but it was about 5 or 10 minutes sitting there going, holy smokes.
Yeah.
And what's really scary and sort of hard to wrap around is that he helped so many people get through their own demons and their own pain.
Right.
And he still had his own struggles that he couldn't win. That's a really tough thing for people to reconcile that juxtaposition or that contrast there. So you never really know what somebody's going through, but we can at least appreciate the therapeutic elements of their music that helped so many people.
I can't remember if that album came out before he passed or after he passed, but like if you go revisit that album, um, I feel like, and maybe I'm just wanting to hear that, but I almost feel like he was like screaming out loud, like I need help from those
Right.
songs.
Right. Yeah. It's really difficult. There were some interviews that he had done shortly before his passing that were concerning in hindsight,
Yeah.
for sure. And brain health is a real thing, man. I mean, from the outside, everything might seem fine, but when you have challenges with a really, really traumatic childhood the way he did, and then substance abuse on top of that, that's a very difficult thing to get out of for a lot of people. There is hope, I believe. There really is hope for people, but unfortunately, he lost his battle with mental illness.
Yeah. And we'll get into your band 'cause that's what we're here to talk about. But I mean, it's so relevant in the world today that we're living in, mental health. And I just said to someone maybe a day or two, and it was obviously after, what the world has experienced. Today is July 17th. So a few days after, an attempted assassination on a former president, regardless of what side you're on, obviously it's a terrible thing in US history. But I feel like the internet and social media has, we're all almost all of us are mentally ill in some capacity, some more than others. But I feel like, the internet and social media has really um, exposed that, or not caused it, but I guess
Definitely amplifies
exposes. Yeah,
definitely amplifies it in a lot of ways. And it's
yeah.
funny to say that. Yeah, so, sorry to cut you off. I was just going to
No,
say,
thank you.
just yeah, no, just to tag on to that. I've made a rule for myself. I actually don't have the Instagram app on my phone anymore or Facebook. Sometimes I'll re-download the Instagram app throughout the day just to do band tasks for a short period of time. But what happens is there is just so much stimuli thrown at you, so much misinformation, and all of the thoughts that you have in your head, whether they're good or bad, your social media algorithms will magnify that thought in a distorted, disproportionate way that is sort of detached from reality. And so I think it's, at least for me, I'd had to set that own parameter for myself to not indulge in social media. Got rid of the Apple News off my phone and all of those things, because not only is it not good for your brain, it's also not accurate really to the reality on the ground. Like this whole idea of we're so divided. It's like, okay, how many times are you going to hear that when you realize that a lot of that is just a magnified, concocted narrative by the media? We're actually a lot more similar than we think. And these extremists on either side of the political aisle, I mean, those are only, I would say, 2.5% on each side. The other 95% are pretty reasonable people. And so when you shut off the news and you shut off social media, it's pretty amazing, the sort of happy, fulfilled life that we're able to live. I don't know if that sounds delusionally
Yeah,
optimistic, but I believe that.
it's a smart move, and I've honestly, in the past 4 days, I have considered getting off social media, just because the the hate and the ability for people to just spout out, things, um, hiding behind a keyboard. It just it's worrisome, and it's not healthy. And if I wasn't doing this, and my full-time job is in radio, not only on air but also in sales, so it's like I have to kind of be in the know of what's going on, at least in my, you know, my radius, my regional area. So I thought about turning it off. I really have, especially in the last few days, but
Right.
we'll see. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge. If it's done in moderation, then I don't particularly see an issue with it. It's just when your social media screen portrays this inaccurate version of the reality on the ground. And that's like one of the things with our music is we always try to inspire people and uplift them while acknowledging the reality of the difficulties of many people's lives and things they've been through and the state of the world. But I do think it's an interesting thing with human beings that we have this inclination to believe that the world is going to hell. When I'm a student of history, and I still have lots and lots and lots of learning to do. But when you look at Japan post World War II, if you said to the Japanese people, if a Japanese person said to their fellow man and fellow woman, like, we're going to build into one of the strongest democracies in the world, one of the democracies with the healthiest people, where the obesity rate is essentially zero, and spark all these innovations in all these different fields, 10x the state that we're in right now economically, people would look at you like you're psycho. But that was actually the truth. That is actually what happened decades and decades later. So why is it delusional and insane to think optimistically, but you sound like a rational pragmatist when you say the whole world is going to hell, man? The whole world is going to hell. It's like you can choose your reality, and you can let that lens guide you forward accordingly. So we try to do that in our music and really promote cutting out the victim mentality in our songs. That is like the core essence of Autumn Kings' message.
Yeah, talk to me about Autumn Kings. I mean, the music is great, and I'm not just saying that because you're staring at me on a computer screen. I've listened to it, and obviously the numbers on Spotify, the numbers of followers on social media, would have to agree, and actually, have to, yeah, agree with that. I'll say, a lot of, a lot of streams on a lot of songs in the millions. Talk to me about Autumn Kings, and who you guys are, and kind of what you're all about.
Yeah, Autumn Kings has been my entire life since I was 18 years old. I'm 27 now. And it's been a nonstop uphill battle, both in terms of breaking through in the competitive, difficult, grueling music business and also honing our chops as creatives. I started off playing Guitar Hero 3 when I was 12 years old, and that was my introduction into the world of music. Social outcast, didn't do well with the ladies, had a very small group of friends, and Guitar Hero 3 at a cousin's house over the Christmas break. I think this is in 2007, I want to say. Really, I just latched onto it and I became concerningly good at the game to the point where I could play Before I Forget by Slipknot backwards. Like I had memorized which buttons on the Guitar Hero little gadget.
Oh,
Like
wow.
it was just freak show. Thankfully, I had a good enough common sense, thanks to my parents' influence and myself, to take that and turn it into a real instrument. And so I learned guitar when I was 12, honed those chops until I was about 18 years old. And all I focused on at that point was guitar. And for the first few years of Autumn Kings' career, we would write our songs guitar first, melody, lyrics, and message second. And as time went on, as we gained a little bit of life experience, that paradigm shifted from guitar first, vocal melody, lyrics second to vocal melody, lyrics first, guitar second. And we were able to really hone in on the lyrics and the message and become more of a band that was focused on songs rather than just technically proficient guitar parts. So it's been and still is to this day a constant refining act of finding that sound or stretching what we believe is even possible in our creative budget to do. And I think with our new song Hellbound, we've really done that because I'm half Lebanese, so I grew up listening to Lebanese music in the car for my dad. So we're drawing from these worldly influences along with some of our favorite influences like Ramones, Nickelback, Metallica, Rise Against, and really incorporating everything together into hopefully what people consider a fresh, different, unique sound. We certainly try to do that. And great group of guys, Joe, the lead singer, Troy on drums. I'm doing guitar and I'm singing, and it's been really the best experience you could ever ask for through all the ups and downs. And we feel like we're just getting started. It's really interesting. 9 years into being a band, we just feel now like we are starting to hit our stride, at least on a commercial level, where people at large are starting to find out who Autumn Kings is. And it's been like the analogy I use as a Canadian. I grew up in Windsor, Ontario, a stone's throw away from Detroit. If you're a hockey player, like you're in the OHL, the Ontario Hockey League, or the farm leagues, and now we're getting drafted to the NHL. That's sort of what it feels like in terms of where we're at in our career. So very exciting time.
Now, have you been the same band for all 9 years?
We've been the same band for all 9 years. Yeah,
That's
well,
great.
Joe and I have been in there since the
Okay.
beginning. A couple bass player changes and drummer changes, but the chorus stayed the same.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like these days that's a feat in itself.
It sure is. It's like a four-way marriage if you have four people in a band. And you can see why for so long in the business, I think it's starting to turn the other way where bands are coming back. But for a really long period of time, solo artists were the main attraction or duos. And this is just my own speculation and my own observation of it. But I think a big part of it is that solo artists are less maintenance than managing four dudes in a band.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to, manage a band or be the label of a band, keeping four people together, dude, keeping two enough in a marriage, that's
Yeah.
enough a task in and of itself for most people. But four is a lot. But thankfully, I attribute a lot of that to Joe, the other lead singer, because that guy, for being a lead singer, dude, has like the least ego you've ever seen. It's almost like freaky how easygoing he is. I have never once seen him lose his cool. Like we have such a synergy. He's been my longest standing songwriting partner. I met him at a grocery store in 2013 in a break room. We're
Nice.
just talking shop. Hey, we should start a band sometime. And then a year went on, and then I dug up my old BlackBerry and brought his number onto my iPhone. I'm like, yo, you want to jam? And we started it, and it's just been a really special thing ever since.
Yeah. And you, like I said, you had some huge success in 9 years. Some of the information that I've seen is, you've been the soundtrack for sporting events, world famous programming like Football Night in America, Detroit Red Wings games, Major League Baseball stadiums, late night with Stephen Colbert. How did those kind of materialize?
All sorts of ways. In the beginning, we didn't have a publicist who was setting up this interview or management and a booking agent and an attorney and a whole infrastructure behind us. It was just us sitting there in our parents' basement with a laptop trying to source these opportunities for ourselves. So it was a combination of, I think with the Red Wings, I think I just cold emailed them in like 2018 and it turned into this really unique relationship where at the time Kid Rock had a restaurant inside the arena and he would have bands do residencies there. So we did a residency in the 2018-2019 Detroit Red Wings season and then met a whole bunch of people at the Red Wings and met Bobby himself, who was such a beauty, exactly how you imagine Kid Rock. That was Kid Rock. So some opportunities were our own, just sticking our necks out and standing up for ourselves and reaching out for opportunities. And others were just gift horses, like the Football Night in America. They just found our song Electrified, which is one of our bigger hits, and wanted to do a licensing deal and use our song on Football Night in America and reached 20 million people. And that's one of those things you really can't control and you really can't plan for, but they are a result of just keeping our heads down like we did and making the best possible song we could, promoting it as best as we could, and then letting the people decide if they like it or not, because you can't really control that. That one was a gift. So some of it is our own initiative. A lot of it now is it's sort of the momentum has turned into its own beast where we get a lot of inbounds and people wanting to work with us and do different things. So it feels good to get that sort of, what would you call it? Validation.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a big advocate for it only takes one. It only takes one person to hear the song, or it only takes one person to hear this podcast that sets you up with the next person, or the next guest, or anything. It only takes one moment in time that could change your life. And yeah, so you make sure you're ready for those moments, and like you said, you keep your head down and keep focused, and the cards will fall as
Yeah,
they do.
exactly. Yeah, exactly as they're supposed to. And that's exactly, we never measure our success by how many streams we have, how much money we're making. It's, did we make the song as great as it can be? And did we give it 150? It sounds so cliche, but it's so true. Like, it's actually deeply true, because that is the only thing we can control, especially during the pandemic, was can we keep our heads down and hone this thing and make the emotional decision to not give up? Because many of our peers around us during that pandemic, for plausible reasons, discontinued music. They just quit. They got a real job that paid the bills. And I completely understand and I don't fault them. But for us, it was that emotional decision to just keep our heads down and keep going. And again, talking about being a student of history, that pandemics pass after a period of time. It ain't going to be that way forever. Will it potentially fundamentally alter the course of the music business as it did, and as we're still feeling the lingering effects of COVID? Yes, but we're back. We're back bigger than ever, and a lot of people are in rock. It's really interesting what happened. Actually, I was just talking about this earlier on another podcast. I think what happened is, so there's a period for rock music, like in the late 2000s, early 2010s, where it felt like, to me, very homogenized, where the labels were almost guiding these bands to just make one kind of sound to service this very confined rock format. And then as streaming began to rise to the forefront, it became a lot more democratized and the gatekeeper sort of went away. And I think that with rock bands, especially ones that owned their own recordings the way we did and could see all the money from that and then use that to fund their band, you have a lot more control and you don't have to be at the beck and call of some CEO at a label who's telling you how to sound. And I think what happened is with some of my favorite bands, and I don't know the inner workings of their businesses, but like We Came as Romans, I grew up listening to. They live 10 minutes away from me here in Michigan. Andy, he's become a friend of mine. They've rose back to the forefront in the last couple of years and have become bigger than ever. Silverstein, same thing. And I attribute a lot of that to the post-pandemic boom of concerts. There's nothing like a rock show when you see 4 or 5 dudes in a band just like giving it all, rather than a solo artist who's playing to a backing track, which could be its own unique experience, not to knock that. But there's something about a rock band that just, to me, is like, it's the greatest sort of thing in the world, combined with the landscape being more democratized and radio and MTV not being the sole gatekeepers of exposing your music to people. I think it is that has been the genesis for a lot more original music, especially in the rock and metal world. So it's a pretty exciting time to be a rock and roll band.
I was going to ask you how you felt about the industry and the rise of streaming services and social media. And it sounds like you guys have embraced it, and it's been a good thing for you guys.
It's totally been a good thing, because you don't have to write songs that are this length to service this format and make sure you have a version that doesn't swear and a version that does swear. It's like, you have a lot more control and you can talk to the fans directly. And I think that's good for everybody. People knock Spotify, and I actually have a different view than the what you hear a lot of people say, which is that they underpay people. When you own your own recordings, it's not half bad. It's actually the most fair thing that I've seen personally, because it's like the best song and the people who can reach their audience best can have a platform. It's almost like a middle class has emerged in the music industry that didn't previously exist. Back in the 80s and 90s, there was only one kind of record deal you could sign. And I will tell you from everything that our team has told us, it is as predatory as it gets. And there were some good reasons, because back then they had to, organize truck drivers who were shipping CDs to stores. It was a lot more of an undertaking, but as a result, the deals were just horrible, and you were locked into 5 or 6 albums, and you were either a massive superstar like Soundgarden or Alice in Chains or Beyonce or whatever, or you failed and nobody ever heard of you. Now there's this interesting middle ground since Spotify really took shape in 2011, where even if you don't become a superstar, but you consistently put out great songs, market them to the people who want to hear the music and need to hear your message, you can actually create a pretty dang good living for yourself if you do things right. So I have a little bit of a different and more progressive view on the whole Spotify and streaming thing than some others.
I really like that take, because I talk to a lot of musicians, and there's a lot out there who like despise Spotify, like want to take Daniel is it Eck,
Daniel Ek.
and for lack of better words, hang him to the wall. But yeah, that's a great take on all that.
Right. Yeah. It's we'll see what happens, and we don't bank on these times to last forever. But another thing too is, again, call this delusionally optimistic, but I actually think overall, over long periods of time, the world gets better. And in that theme and in that thinking, more people are getting access to internet every year, particularly in developing countries like Africa and some of the parts of Asia. And with more people getting access to internet is more people getting the opportunity to stream music. More people getting the opportunity to stream music is more people streaming your songs if they like your music and they like your message. And that's more money. And actually, some of these big investor guys and gals are putting a lot of money into music, which is why you see a growing number of catalog acquisitions, because it's starting to actually become a stable thing. Streaming is becoming like this, like a stable asset, sort of like in the stock market or, a mutual fund. And so not that we look at it from that standpoint, but if you own your own recordings, it's not too bad. But most importantly is the songs have to be great. Like
Right.
that's all it's about at the end of the day.
And your songs are great. And what I've noticed, a common theme and things that you say is you're a very positive. You have a very positive outlook on life. And the old saying goes like, shit in, shit out, or good in and good out. How have you kind of taken the positive energy and the positive mentality, and how has that translated into your music and into the band and to where you guys have ultimately gone so far?
I think being positive, as long as it's grounded in reality, is the greatest superpower in the world. Because I fully believe that there are two ways to look at the world. You can look at it like everything is going to go to hell, or you can look at it like generally over a long period of time, things are going to get better. And that has certainly been the case for me. I used to be a very socially awkward kid, had a hard time talking to girls. I was super tall and skinny in school. I knew when I was 15, even when I didn't fit in, I knew when I was 25 that life was going to be better. I just had this feeling. I'm like, okay, being an adult, you get to exert your own agency and autonomy, right, over your life. You're not bound by what your parents say anymore, or your teachers, or raising your hand to go to the bathroom when you're 16 years old and you can drive a car. Like all these things about being young, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
So for me, I always feel like as long as you have autonomy over your thinking and your decisions, how could life not be great? And then if you're this nihilistic thinker, my challenge to the nihilistic frame of thinking is, what's your alternative, right? If not this, then what is it? Like, why don't you make the most of life? And one of the reasons I love Nickelback, not only because they're Canadian like me, is they were one of the rare hard rock bands. They had the poppy songs, but they had hard rock songs too that did really well. They were one of the rare bands that wasn't sulking in their depression and sulking in the negative emotions. And that's one of the biggest gripes I have with rock music. Ever since I was 15 or 16, like some of these artists who had really great songs, catchy, meaningful, there's no happy ending. Like, bro, you got to give people hope. And so what we always wanted to do is acknowledge the tough reality that people go through and not deny it. It's not like a fake positive thing. Acknowledge that And then ask yourself, what's the move on the chessboard here? Is it to adopt the identity of a victim, or is it to say, I have a lot more choice than I'm giving myself credit for, and I'm going to utilize that to the fullest every single day? And so it's that frame of thinking that's carried us on through the pandemic as a band that almost made it over that proverbial hump and then had all of the momentum stripped from us in 2020. We had so much going for us, but we weren't at a Taylor Swift level yet or a Shinedown level where whether or not a pandemic happened, we already had an established fan base that wasn't going to go anywhere. No, we were emerging. And then we took many steps back when the pandemic happened. And so what can get you through that? It's will and optimism that things are going to get better. That is the only way. So that's why I'm such a big believer in it. And it's also just as contagious as fear and anger are. Fear and anger ruin people, right? But if you're positive and optimistic, I actually think that has a ripple effect too, and a much better one for your health and well-being and success too. So
100%. And like I said, that goes into your music. And we talked earlier about, Linkin Park and the how helpful that was to people and their fans. Have you been able to experience that with, your music and the fans that you have as well?
totally. It's the main reason that we still do this is when you talk to fans after shows who pour their hearts out to you. It's not just the selfie or the handshake of great job, you guys are awesome. Obviously, that feels great too. But it's people telling you their greatest hopes and dreams, their greatest fears, or their greatest losses, something they're currently going through, the loss of a loved one or going through a hard time mentally. And then them telling us that our music has provided a therapeutic experience for them, because that's the thing about music, and that's one of the big things we try to do is we try to tell the truth that is so uncomfortable, that has been living in most people's subconscious, and we're able to pull that out of them and articulate what they're going through in a way that they didn't even know how to do themselves, and then it causes them to change. And one of the superpowers of music, and one of the things I love about comedy, like Bill Burr, I love Bill Burr as a
Yes.
comedian, is he can touch on these uncomfortable truths, but because he laces it with this drug called humor, people are more receptive to it. Whereas if some politician said it, or if somebody said it in spoken word, it would sound condescending or preachy. And it's the same thing with us with our music, right? Where we can say these things in our song Hellbound, like cutting out the victim mentality, which is so pervasive in at least in North American culture, right? I mean, I grew up in Canada and moved to the US years ago, so I've seen it in both. And we can say that, but because it's done over a happy, upbeat instrumental, people are like, ah, and then it sort of we just planted that seed in their head. And then when they look at the lyrics or even are mindful of them, they're like, oh dang, this is this is deep. But they are receptive to it because the song puts them in a good mood.
Mhm.
And that is one of the most, I think, potent ways to deliver a meaningful message.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Burr is amazing.
Yes.
And that's a good analogy. I really like that as well. But yeah, talk about some of your songs. You said Hellbound, Sleep When I'm Dead. I think that's a pretty popular and great song. Um, a ton of like I said, a bunch of these songs have a ton of streams, and I know you don't get caught up in that, but obviously that's a good um I guess
Indicator that they're going right.
judgment, or yeah, I mean, like if a common person like me is looking at this from just a high level view, not knowing who you are, like now that I'm talking to you, it's even more evident that like there's a lot more that goes into these good songs. You're good people, you're well spoken, positive attitude, all the above, right? Um, but talk about some of these songs because like I said, they seem very popular. You can start with one or two, and we can leave it at that. But
Yeah.
talk about a few that mean something to you or your fans.
Sure, yeah, and absolutely. Just to get on board with what you're saying there too, we definitely do look at the numbers because they are an easy, quantifiable way to see is this generally speaking working, right? And so it's definitely good to see that the numbers are growing. Like there's no question about it. I don't know if there's any artist who truly detaches from that. It's just we don't allow ourselves to get hung up on it. But as far as a song like Sleep When I'm Dead, Sleep When I'm Dead is a hustler's anthem. It's an underdog's anthem. It's whether or not you're a lawyer going into a courtroom to argue a case, or if you're going in to write a test, or like us, you're backstage before the show and you need something to fire you up, or you're an athlete and it's before a game, or you're somebody who's having a difficult conversation with their partner. That's the kind of song that needs to serve as fuel to motivate you to do the things that are scary to do. And one of the early lines in Sleep When I'm Dead is, everyone's talking, addicted to gossip, but I can't be bothered. When you see people who are, sitting there over tea time, like gossiping about other people, or popular kids who all day long just, in high school would sit up against the wall and like talk smack about other people, that used to fire me up. It used to make me mad. Like, I'm going to be the antithesis to that, the way I live my life. Everyone's talking, addicted to gossip, but I can't be bothered. The money's irrelevant. The fame isn't part of it because life is a test. There's no time to rest. I ain't even started yet. It's a self-fulfilling sort of prophecy thing too. I like to speak that way because then when it comes out of my mouth, it reinforces it into my brain, and then I find it's easier to act according to what I just said. But it's really a hustler's anthem to get people through a hard time, or just to motivate them and get them fired up. We have other songs like Aliens, let's say. Aliens doesn't have any deep meaning. There's no deep message or uncomfortable truth. It's just about getting abducted by aliens because it sounded great. It was fun. It felt good. Some of us had nightmares as kids, but it was nothing overly dramatic or some long-standing issue. It just felt good. So we'll go from serious to playful at times. We have a song called Running from the Police from the first record we put out. Just a story of two people who ran from the police. There's no deeper meaning to it. We don't have a political stance on police. It's just a fun story. And then we have songs like Riptide, which is about going through a really, really difficult time mentally and feeling like you were completely helpless to the world and circumstances around you. So if we're being honest as writers, we want to touch on every spectrum, or on every emotion within the human spectrum, whether that's a not so serious mood like Running from the Police and Aliens, or a kick-ass song like Sleep When I'm Dead, or a I feel anxious and depressed song like Riptide, and everywhere in between. And we plan to always keep it that way because we don't want to get caught up in one particular theme. And not that there's anything wrong with that. Like AC/DC is one of my favorite bands of all time. I've never heard a ballad from AC/DC. I've never heard a song about conquering your demons. I've only heard songs about kicking ass, and I love it. And I love AC/DC, right?
Yeah.
So to each their own. But for us, we like to span the whole human spectrum of emotion.
Is that a way for you to connect with your fans as
Totally.
well?
It's a way for us to connect with fans, and a way for us to really connect with ourselves, I would say. And beyond that, I think that I would be concerned that our songwriting would turn stale if we were just focusing on one theme with every single song. So we like to switch it up and keep it fresh because that keeps us on our toes. We are very vicious with how we scrutinize our songs and use a lot of judgment in discerning between which songs are worth releasing and which songs are not worth releasing. So we can say that whatever song we put out, there's no filler, there's no chasing a hit. Like every song is very intentional, very thought out to be the best representation of what we're thinking inside, and also to be sure that we're not repeating a song that we did in the past and just regurgitating or recycling it because we think it would work.
Has your music been pretty consistent over the years, or has it, have you adapted at all, or have you changed tone or anything like that, or have you guys kind of been like kind of, on the same trajectory?
I think, musically speaking, at the core, we've always been a rock band. No question about that. But what happened is with our first record, Silver Screens, in 2017, we're very guitar oriented. So every song started with the guitar riff, and then the vocals and the words and the drums and bass were all revolving around the guitar work. And then what happened is, as we gained more life experience and switched our mentality to let's be songwriters first before just a rock band that's tight. Because that's what we were at the beginning. We were a really tight rock band. Everyone in the band could play. The songs were pretty good. And then I would say right around 2018, 2019, we really cared to write memorable songs. Like I mentioned Nickelback before as an example. How You Remind Me. Every time I hear that song, I think that is their Hotel California, if you will, because the words are so meaningful, the melodies are so catchy, the chords are so unique, and the band is tight, and the instrumentation is tight. So in 2018, 2019, we went really experimental in terms of our sound choices. We went digital and electronic on a lot of things. And then we found a nice midway point starting in 2022 with our record Book of the Broken, all the way up to present day, where we're more band oriented, but we like to borrow from other genres and splice them into our music tastefully. So we're a rock band, but we are very current with our sounds, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, you brought up Nickelback again, and so I have to touch on that.
Yeah.
I love Nickelback. I have always loved Nickelback, and for whatever reason they, were hated. I mean, I guess success will do that to you, right?
Yeah.
Um, what a fucking great band.
So good. Oh my God.
Have you seen the documentary yet?
Oh, I actually watched it during the 2 day window that it was available in theaters before it even came out on Netflix. My fiance and I went. Amazing.
So I started watching it, and my wife comes in and she goes, "Oh, I wanted to watch that with you." I'm like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah, I want to see how they started and how they got to where they are." I'm like, "Okay, I'll wait. That's amazing, right?" I have yet to finish it, but so that's
Well, then
like,
I won't.
yeah, don't
Yeah.
ruin it for me. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think I saw like 10 minutes, and I love that like Chad was just like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this, and it's gonna happen."
Yeah.
And kind of like you, like you kind of willed it into existence. Like this is it. Like this is I will do whatever it takes, and positive and all that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I noticed because I moved to the US about 5 or 6 years ago just to get closer to the music world. And there's an entrepreneurial spirit in this country that I can't quite explain. It's really special. There's a level of confidence and balls that my American friends have that is like, I think I can do it and I'm gonna kick ass. In Canada, there is that. It's just not in my perception, it's not proclaimed as loudly. And Nickelback was one of those bands that didn't necessarily proclaim it loudly, but they were the loudest example of success in Canada. And growing up in Windsor, across from Detroit, they felt like me, right? They had a similar value system. They didn't fall into those same traps that a lot of the other bands did with excessive drug issues or like deep mental health. They had camaraderie and they were measured and balanced and they had really strong principles and values and they were really entrepreneurial about how they went about their career and built their leverage and built their momentum and hustled CDs into stores,
Yeah.
built organic groundswell on the road, went $150,000 in debt to pursue their dream. Like, dude, they put their whole life on the line for it and they won and they wrote all the songs themselves. So even though they get criticized for being contrived, I challenge that big time because they wrote everything themselves. They didn't get into some writers' rooms in LA and work with the biggest, fanciest names to try to get this hit that could service the radio. They figured out how to do it themselves, and they did it on such a massive scale that it was nothing short of admirable. And they actually changed the trajectory of my life when I was 15. Hearing them speak in interviews and seeing how they were optimistic too. They didn't go on and on about the negative things that we all experience and should acknowledge. Like they were excited to be doing what they were doing. Chad loved being a rock star. He's like, I'm a rock star. This is great. I'm like, dude, you're the coolest guy. And it took me away from, both of my parents had business degrees and they wanted me initially to become a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist. And I told my pops, I said, Dad, I love you, and Mom, I love you, but I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not doing anything but music. And it took them quite a few years to get warmed up to it and see that it was actually a viable career once some of the success started happening. But thanks to Nickelback, they changed me from probably becoming an accountant, which there's nothing wrong with. But for me,
Right.
there's something wrong with it once I saw that they did this and I have this musical talent. And if I'm not utilizing this musical talent to the fullest, I don't think I'm serving God, who I believe in, and I don't think I'm serving my highest potential. And so that's a big part of why Autumn King started is because of that band Nickelback.
That's amazing. I mean, and their song "Photograph" is probably my favorite. It's probably one of the most hated songs too. But I'm a
Right?
very sentimental person. And then when that came out, I think it was 2005. I just like, man, this is amazing.
So good. So good. They had a way of tapping into what the collective unconscious is thinking and feeling, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really special gift. And that's something that I don't feel that I was blessed with. I actually don't think that I'm a natural songwriter. I think guitar wise, I picked that up pretty naturally and I could rip Metallica pretty quickly. But it took me 6, 7 years of tirelessly songwriting to feel when I was about 23 or 24, I would say, was the first time I felt like okay, I think I got the hang of this now. Like I think I'm all right at this. I think I'll be good. But man, it took a long time. And when I look at Nickelback or Oasis or Shinedown, I'm just in awe of the how consistently and over how long of a period they were able to write such great tunes.
Yeah. Music is an amazing thing. I wish I could play it. I have zero talent whatsoever as far as an instrument goes.
Well, you're able to to talk to people, and you're able to stimulate good conversation. And I see you're
Thank you.
with it's Rock 107, right? That you're with.
Rock 107. Yeah, that's the big one, classic rock station, and we just launched a an alternative station called Fuzz 96.1,
Cool.
which I'm pumped about. It was a popular station maybe 10 years ago. It was around for maybe 4 or 5 years, and they changed the name for whatever reason to Alt 92.1.
Hmm.
And then it went away in 2020 because the alternative format, I don't know if you know this or not, but it's not a huge revenue generating uh, format.
Right.
And then got a new CEO and some things changed and a different view, different vision for the future. And we brought it back. So I'm pumped about that. But yeah, so what you're saying is, yeah, I'm part of it in some way. And I'm thankful that I am.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. Radio is an art in and of itself, man. I would argue actually radio, I think it's probably more competitive than the music business because you're at the whim of a lot of people too who can make decisions and downsize the company or increase, and just change the format on a whim. And we saw it, one of the greatest stations I think of all time was 89X, a rock station in Detroit. And they championed us and they brought us a lot of fans with their support, people who showed up live to see us play. I'll never forget Blues Fest 2019 in Windsor, Ontario. People came from Ohio who had heard us on 89X. So the reach from Detroit stretched as far as 2 or 3 hours away. And that station championed new music and brought people to our shows. And I remember the day it switched overnight. So our song Power came out in October 2020, got added to regular rotation. A day later, boom, switched to a country station. I'm like, man. And a lot of my friends worked at that station. I'm like, dude, good for you. You got to have thick skin and you got to be super resilient to have a career in radio. So kudos to you for that, man.
Well, to be transparent, I do like uh a quick 2 hour air shift on Saturdays from 7 to 9 p.m. And then I do on Rock 107, and then I do like an hour shift on Fuzz, and I feature an hour of local music to our area. And I want to ask you this question because we had a PD from Detroit. I forget what station he worked at, but he came from Detroit to our area in 2017 or 17. His name is
Mhm.
PK.
I know PK.
You know PK?
Oh yeah, we go way back,
Oh
man.
shit.
He gave us one of our first opportunities,
No
2016.
way.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Go
so
Google. Yeah,
yeah, Phil Kugawinski. Yeah, that's amazing. I have him to thank for me being on the air. If you don't mind, I'll share a quick story.
please.
I'm not sure if you have a ton of time, but
Yeah, dude, I got all night.
um I won't keep you all night, I promise.
Oh, thank
So
God.
when we went from Fuzz and we changed it to Alt again, it was the same music. For whatever reason, they wanted to change the name. I don't know why. I wasn't, I guess, important enough to be in those high level meetings or whatever. So they changed it to Alt 92.1. We had two guys, it was Duffy and Ferg, who were with Fuzz that when they started, they like when the name changed, they were still around. But eventually, I think the management that was in place at the time, they wanted a new voice, I guess you could say, with the new, branding. So they unfortunately they let Duffy go, they let Ferg go, and they brought in PK from Detroit. And that was early 2017. So PK came in and you know, he was just talking to me, very casually about, my time at the station, this, that, the other thing. And, he kind of asked me like what I felt like I wanted to like hear from the station and things like that. He kind of valued my opinion, right? And I had said, you know, I wanted to have a local radio show where we highlight, the local scene here because I think this local scene is amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I live here, but I've been in it for so long. I would love the opportunity to like, you know, shine a light on them. I said, I don't want to do it myself. Like I have no business on the radio. I could barely talk in general. I mumble this, that, the other thing. I said, I didn't want to do it. I wanted someone to do it. He goes, oh, I had a local show back in Detroit, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
He's like, what if we do it? Yeah, we could do it here. I said, that sounds great. He goes, why don't you do it? I'm like, bro, I said, again, I have no business to be on the radio, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, there's no better person to do it than you. You've been in it for so long. You've been around it. You're genuine. You're passionate. He goes, you'll figure it out. So
Yeah.
August 2017, I launched a local radio show called Alt Natives on Alt 92.1. And I hosted that for 3 years before they changed the alt format to something else. And I have him to thank for giving me my quote unquote big break.
Amazing. Wow, that's such a great story. And what I love about that is I know exactly what show you're talking about that he had. It was the Homeboy Show, which was the first time we ever got played on the radio was because of PK with Autumn Kings, our song Devil in Disguise.
Oh
And
shit.
that gave me hope that we could do this too. And that's very cool that he came all the way to your area and inspired confidence in you to do a show like that, to give bands like us an opportunity. Because radio, sort of like I think the point you were alluding to earlier about the streaming numbers, not that we value it, but it's a good stamp of legitimacy and credibility to see numbers, just as it is to get played on the radio. If you're a
Right.
band that's played on the radio, that means that you had to go through a series of steps and you had to get somebody else who presumably has a decent taste to approve it and say this is worth a shot. So that adds a lot of credibility. So I'm
Yes.
grateful for his influence, and I'm thankful that you're still here and being able
Yes.
to interview me here tonight.
Well, I started this podcast because, like I said, the format got changed in 2020, and I realized a lot about myself. I think I need the local scene more than they need me. I mean, I can't stop now. And I was hosting a podcast in conjunction with the show because, you could do that quick 2 minute interview on the radio and, how'd you get the band name and oh, you have an album coming out or you have a show next week, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. There's no like depth to that, right? So I was doing a podcast as well. So when they killed the format or the station, I was like, all right, I'm gonna do a podcast. I'm gonna keep doing this, and I've been doing it ever since December of 2020.
Yeah.
You'll be episode 196 or seven, I forget. Creeping up on 200. I'm only saying that because there's a million podcasts out there, right? But only I think like 10% make it past episode 20 or something like that.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, that's so crazy. That's what a small world. That is so nuts.
Small world, man. Definitely a small world. And to your point about podcasts, being able to promote Autumn Kings and what we stand for in a long form discussion format is one of the greatest things. I actually think, for all the opinions people have about whether or not social media and the internet have been a net positive or a net negative for people, one of my favorite things is these long form discussions. They foster a more transparent and in-depth opportunity to discuss issues, to discuss what we stand for and our message, much better than a 5 minute interview that just fires off the basic questions where everything is kept pretty surface level. And I understand there is a place for that, and I would never deny such an opportunity to be on one of those late night shows or good morning shows. Of course, it would be entrepreneurially irresponsible to say no to things like that.
Yeah.
But what do I much prefer? I much prefer conversations like these where we can open up and you can get to see who I really am, and then you can get to see who you really are. It's been an
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And thankfully when they brought back Fuzz, they allowed me to bring back the radio show.
Right.
So I'm doing that again. So I have this platform as well as the ability to play their music on the radio. And one thing you said before, and I really appreciate because it's something I've always said too. Um, they have to go through like a filter, so to speak, of someone hearing it and saying, "Hey, this is good enough." And
Yeah.
one thing I pride, because there's two other local radio shows in our area. There was the one he's been doing it for over 20 years. Then I started mine, and then a different station kind of revived theirs because I think they wanted to, kind of play in the sandbox too. Um, and something I've noticed since, when I was off air for that long, it's like they're just I don't want to say I do a better job because that's not fair. I just think I care more. And
Mm.
I will fight that battle if anyone wants to fight that. Like I seek out bands. I listen to tunes. I'm like, hey, like please send me your stuff. I think it's great. Whatever it might be. It's just different. I mean, and I'm happy that we all exist because the more exposure, the better. Like I'm never one of those guys that are saying like I should be the only one because that wouldn't be fair either.
Yeah.
I just
Well,
think it's a different perspective.
It's definitely a different perspective. And one of the beautiful things about radio is even in 2024, when the big fuss is about streaming and that you can put everything on the internet. So why do you need radio anymore? Well, radio still serves as a very important filter. There's a reason that people still run very expensive radio campaigns, like I'm talking artists and their teams, is because it is, if you're somebody who wants to discover new music, okay, go on Spotify. Other than the top 100 charts, which are largely influenced by radio, how do you find the new music? Like, unless it just you trip on it in a playlist, which is possible, radio is still a very effective filter. You know, we're getting lots of love and support from our friends at Octane and Vincent Rockwell, the program director there. I mean, he prides himself on breaking new bands, and that guy he wields so much power, and he uses it in such a beautiful and supportive way. Because if he adds something to a station, it gets displayed to all these fans of the station who are fans because they trust the program director's taste. And this is exactly what you do too, is that you have an audience that trusts your taste. And that is very valuable and appreciated by them. And of course, appreciated by us, because you guys are the conduit to get us to a lot of our fans. And then
Yeah.
when we go to Pennsylvania and we go to the Scranton area, it's like, now we're going to have a crowd there. It's really awesome.
Yeah. That's all I care about. Like I mean, I get paid $0 to do this or even the show. It's such I love it.
Yeah.
I just do. It means so much to me, and I'm so honored to be able to like be back on the air and share those songs. Because I thought about doing like an online radio show, but like there's something special, like you were saying, about just being on the radio. Yeah, has it declined in listenership over the years because of things like Spotify and Sirius and XYZ? Sure, yes, everything has changed,
Yeah.
but there's still something special. I mean, I had people out like they would be taking videos on their cell phones of the station on their car dashboard and their me announcing their song. I'm like, that's so fucking cool.
Yeah. It's probably the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it
So,
is to everybody.
we're talking about memorable moments. What are some for you in the time of the band, or something maybe bizarre, happened?
Hmm. I would say the most memorable moment that I can think of off the top of my head would be 2016, when the band was just getting started. We embarked on this 4-month tour across high schools in Canada, from the province of Ontario all the way with Ontario, which is, neighboring Michigan, all the way to British Columbia, way out west above Washington. And we played for all these different high schools. I was 19 years old. I had just dropped out of university. Um, we were getting paid zero money on this tour. We could just sell merch, and then we were having like our basic needs taken care of. We were sponsored by a Hamilton, Ontario-based charity called Live Different. They basically send bands out to motivate students to become the best versions of themselves. And so they didn't have any money to pay the band, but they gave us a modified school bus and a budget for food of $15 a day per person, or something like that, and hooked us up with billets who were housing us across the country. So not compensated well, but a very beautiful experience, and they're doing amazing work. Like, we love those people. And one day we were driving up to Fort Nelson, British Columbia, which is so high north, you're getting close to Alaska at this point. Again, 19 years old. One of the guys in the team was driving the bus. I think it was Jeremy, our drummer at the time. And we started hearing our song Devil in Disguise on the radio. Now, at this point, we only had 5 songs released. We all thought that he had put it in through the aux and was just playing it to like be funny. Haha, we're listening to our own music. And then I had this thought. I'm like, we're not getting played on the radio, right? Like, we're like really far away from here. And then whatever. So we kept listening, kept listening. Then the song ended, and we're like, come on, with all this little idea in our heads, and maybe the song was getting played on the radio. And then we hear it. That was Autumn Kings, and you're listening to 101 The Bear in Fort St. John. And we all started screaming because we are so far removed from home. The whole life we knew we just left behind us. All of our parents thought we were crazy doing this thing for no money, sleeping on gymnasium hardwood floors before we played for a school the next day. Like, just bonkers, right? And we're so high up north, and we hear this song on the radio. And that was just like, that's God, dude. That's all I can, like, the universe, that's God. After that day, I never heard anything from my parents about why you're doing music. And it was just something really wild, really memorable. Actually, Joe caught the video on his iPhone. It's somewhere out there in the ether. And when we did that, that was another great just hallmark moment for us where we're like, wow, this is meant to be, because that is just too crazy. We didn't have a radio programmer at that time or anything. Some guy in the middle of nowhere liked our song enough to play it. We caught it while we are in the middle of this tour, freezing our asses off, drinking hot chocolate to stay warm on a non-heated bus. Like, it was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. And I'm sure lots more interesting memories to come.
Yeah, I hope so. With that being said, what are some future goals for the band?
Future goals for the band are just to stay doing this, to keep making music and to keep expressing the deep, profound truths that we feel will help people, and get to the point where the band is selling out arenas. I believe that we are capable of doing that. There's no guarantee of it. That's not, we don't, predicate our identity on how far the band goes in that way. We do predicate our identity on, were we disciplined enough to continue making the best possible music we know how to make? Like, that is an important thing to us. And it's just to continue doing that and to keep inspiring people, to keep meeting people, to do conversations like this. I mean, this is the reason I said earlier I had all night is because this is my, third chat of the night, and I'm not tired. Like, this actually re-energizes me. Like, I could do this all day and night, connecting with people like you, talking about important, interesting stuff, especially with, the so-called polarization and the way people feel in the current climate of the world. You have podcasts like yours that I believe serve as the antithesis to that and allow people to expose their humanity rather than their differences. And so if I can continue doing all of these things, I know some bands don't look forward to doing press or they get tired of it because they've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it. I love doing press just as much as I love writing songs and I love playing live. So for me, there isn't like a particular aim other than ultimately we want to be selling out arenas in all the major cities around the world, but all the while just enjoying this process. And if we can keep making a living doing this, I've always said that. It's like, if I can make a teacher's salary doing this, dude, you fucking kidding me? I made it. Like, it's done.
Did you hear that from somebody like a comedian?
A teacher's salary?
Yeah.
No.
No shit. Somebody, shit, what was I was talking to a comedian and I kind of asked him like what his level of success, like what determines that. And he was saying like, I think he was watching another comedian maybe that said it. And I think it was that exact same number. Like and he
Yeah.
said teacher salary. And it was
Huh.
kind of a great, and I'm glad you said that because it just kind of reinforces what he said. But success is defined by what? And some people think it's like, fame and millions of dollars and things like that. But,
Yeah.
I like to think that I'm successful. I'm not making millions, obviously, but like I'm doing what I love. I go to work every day and I'm kind of excited about the day and it feeds my family. And end of the day, that's really all that matters.
Dude, it's like when we do our long road trips with the band and we're traveling somewhere far for a show, you have nothing but time to kill. So you talk about all these interesting things. And sometimes a topic of conversation that comes up is, what would you do if you had $1 billion? And actually, the question was, what are some of these really raunchy, disgusting things you would do for $1 billion? I won't go into the specifics, but just picture like crazy wild stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I'm like, what would I do for $1 billion? And then I'm like, I wouldn't do anything for $1 billion. And it sounds crazy, but my life literally wouldn't change. We would have a little more money for a huge Hollywood style music videos. Okay. We'll travel on private jets instead of on a tour bus or in a Sprinter van. Okay. But the fundamentals of my life do not change at all. Right.
Right.
I fully anticipate a world where I maybe have millions or tens of millions in the bank. That I'm not ruling that out of the equation, because one of the reasons I love music is that it's entrepreneurial and there is no cap on your income. I love that. I love that idea that there is no limit to your success, but I'm in no way driven by it. And I always tell my fiance, I say, if we get that massive hit song that just changes the world, a Thriller, Michael Jackson, a Back in Black, AC/DC, Don't Stop Believing, Journey, it's like, what am I going to do with that money? Reinvest it back in the band. Maybe buy a couple rental properties in real estate.
Yeah.
Not a Lambo, not a Rolex. I'm going to give back to my high school and actually fund a proper music program so that people aren't just learning outdated theory and are learning actual skills that they can apply to become a successful musician in all aspects. Like, what do I need $1 billion for? I don't care. If I'll take it, sure. And if I don't ever get it, That is not the pursuit. The pursuit is excellence. Like that's all it is. That's why I'm a musician. And that's why I didn't want to go and become a business person that worked in corporate America. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me, there is something wrong with it because music is my number one thing. It's my love. Like I ooze passion for music, and I have to do that. I don't want. It's not like you don't do music because you want to. You do it because you have to. And if another pandemic came or a war or something crazy came, I would still be out, and I couldn't do the band. I would go busking on the streets in Detroit to make money. Like I can't not do music. I'll answer the door sometimes with the guitar on me, or like I'll get up in the middle of the night. My fiance thinks I'm on crack, and I'm like, I had a song idea. And
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like, you know, it's love. It's love,
Yeah.
But
Well, I think certain people are put on this earth to do certain things, you
I
know?
I would agree with that too. I would totally agree with that. You look at the legends, man, like Martin Luther King, dude. Like that guy was there for a purpose, and he utilized his gift of being a great orator and did it. And we feel that for Autumn Kings, it's definitely music, and that's what's allowed us to sustain for 9 years and counting.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've ever made it my way. I hope you do someday.
Yeah,
Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, even Philly, New York, whatever.
we'll be there. We have some plans now. They're not yet announced, and I'd knock on wood because we've had a few tours in the past canceled, and that seems to become more of a thing now, unfortunately. So I don't want to say it yet, but as
Okay.
of now, we are planning for a month-long tour in the fall coming out to the East Coast,
Okay.
including New Jersey and New York, and I believe Pennsylvania too, but I have to double check.
Well, I'll have to make sure that I follow you on, well, I do, but I'll make sure I keep, maybe I'll even check that bell in the top corner, whatever the hell that is, to make sure I am notified of all your posts. But
Good deal.
yeah, where can people find you online?
Find us everywhere on all the socials: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok are the 4 platforms that we're the most active. And then wherever you stream music, Apple, Spotify, Deezer, Pandora, Google Play, et cetera, et cetera. We're on pretty much all of it. So you type in Autumn Kings, you'll find what you need.
Okay. And let's say, just someone sees that, this pops up, Popko Project, Autumn Kings is on it, but they don't have time to listen. They just don't have time. Maybe they hate me, whatever it might be, right? What 3 songs, if they say Autumn Kings, I should go check out their music, what 3 songs should they start with?
They should start with Hellbound, I think is the best song we've ever written and produced, which is our new one, which sounds ironic and sounds like salesman-y, I guess. But I do believe Hellbound is the strongest song we've written. I would listen to ooh, Aliens, because I think it's our most unique, especially from a guitar standpoint. And then I would listen to, I think I'd listen to our song Echo, Ready for War, because that is a good synopsis of who Autumn Kings is and what it stands for. So Echo, Aliens, and Hellbound, the 3
Okay.
songs. Too. Yeah.
I don't know if I would have chosen. Well, I don't know what I would have chosen, but I'm surprised Sleep When I'm Dead's not on there.
Because if I thought of it, and if I said Sleep When I'm Dead, then it would sound like I'm just pandering to the fact that those are our 2 newest songs.
Okay.
But let's throw Sleep When I'm Dead in there as the 4th one.
Can we talk about the cover song you guys did real quick?
Yeah, which one? We've done a few.
We've done a few. Okay, well, I don't know about the few, but I know of the one, "Livin' La Vida Loca."
Yes, sir. That's by far the most well-known one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Living La Vida Loca was really interesting. We put that out a long time ago. It was October 2016. And I think it was living, speaking of the numbers again on Spotify, I think it had under 1,000 streams for the first year, which for artists, that is the worst feeling because it's like got that less than symbol, less
Yeah.
than like, damn, this sucks. And what happened is I got really mad that nobody was responding to it. And so we figured out how to remarket it to the right audience. And once we did that on socials, dude, it went so viral in 2017. I think this was December of 2017. And the reason it went viral is because we were hitting these kids in their teens who had discovered the song from Shrek. Shrek 2, I think, was the movie.
Mm.
And so it was triggering the nostalgia in them. And then they just started spreading it like wildfire. Why did we pick Livin' La Vida Loca? Because it was, from a musical standpoint, a very interesting song. Like I love the chord choice. I thought the lyrics and the wordplay were really something special when comparing with other pop songs. I found that song to be a really standout track, and we were able to take something that was in a completely different genre, Latin pop, right, Ricky Martin, and made it this contemporary hard rock piece. So it was just an interesting take on it, and I think a lot of people liked it. And we still, to this day, it has survived on the set list, and people go nuts every time we play it.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not? How
It's
could you
it's
not?
it's really funny. We've got a great team behind us now, but I remember in the beginning there was an executive at one of the big three major labels, Warner, who heard "Livin' La Vida Loca," and he's like, "I don't like this cover. I think it's tacky, irrelevant, and means absolutely nothing to the target audience you're trying to hit. I would steer away from this." And this was before we figured out how to market it to the right audience. And it turned, dude, he was so wrong. It turns out our audience loved the song. It is our highest streamed song still. And it connected exactly with the people who wanted to hear it, which it's nothing against him. He was actually a very nice, respectable guy. He just had an opinion that he happened to be wrong on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What other covers do you have?
We did this one is a lesser known one. It's Happy Christmas, the John Lennon cover. So we got a Christmas song under our belt. We've also done a Sail by AWOL Nation, which I think is one of the most unique songs of the 21st century. And oh my gosh, I think we have one of Dream On by Aerosmith
Shit.
is the other one that we put out in our most recent album, Book of the Broken. So we like to sprinkle in covers here and there, but we definitely don't want to start becoming known as a cover band, which is
Right.
why we throw them in very sparingly. But it's nice to pay homage to some of our favorite songs and artists.
Yeah, I feel terrible that I did not dig in deep enough because I mean, all those are like, man, I wish I would have heard that before this interview.
You know the original songs, and that's what matters most, and that's what
Yeah.
we like to hear.
Shame on me. Shame on me.
Not even a little.
I'm not doing my homework.
No, not even a little bit. It's all good.
Well, Jake, I really appreciate your time. I love the music and speaking to you again, like I said before, just kind of who portrayed to be as a person, and that's came out wrong. I don't think you're faking who you are, but speaking to you and learning more about you, like I wish you all the success in the world, and you seem like a great dude, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it, and thank you for giving me a platform to promote Autumn Kings and our message and our music. And no, I'm not posing. I promise, guys. This is the real me.
That came out wrong. I apologize. That
Um,
was
no,
you
I'm
know what I
playing.
meant. It's
I know.
people are it's easy to come off a certain way on the internet, and what I tried to say is like I don't believe that that's the case with you. So
I appreciate that. No, and it's funny. The reason I say that is because it's funny on some of these long form podcasts. You'll see like politicians, and for the first 20 or 30 minutes, they're on their game and they're perfect. And then someone asks them a question about chicken wings or something random, and they just get like they don't have the script for it. And then you see it's like it's so funny, man. But thank you for the time. Thank you for this interview, and I will be sure to let you know if we come to Pennsylvania. We'll make sure we get you some comp tickets for you and your wife and
oh,
anybody
dope.
else from the stations who would want to come. We'll make sure you guys get hooked up.
That's dope. Yeah, I will, and not because I want comp tickets. I'll send you my contact info in the messenger on Instagram or email, whatever you prefer. We can get that
Yeah,
out after this is over. But
yeah.
yeah, Jake, honestly, it was a pleasure speaking with you. And again, I wish you and Autumn Kings nothing but success. And I'm hoping to see one day, Arena MSG. Let's go MSG. Let's go big.
Oh, yeah, yeah. East
Hold out.
Coast. Love
Yeah,
it, man. Thanks, John. Thanks for the time and
yeah.
congrats on all your continued success and staying in the game this long. And I hope we get to do this again sooner than later.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome, dude.
All right, we'll see you.
All right, bye.